some people join.
Hi guys. So I see that everyone's slowly pouring in. It is 6, at least in my time. But we're gonna just wait for it to fill up a little bit. But I guess while we're here, just to reiterate some things. So if you guys were not here yesterday, that's totally fine. I do recommend watching the live stream. It's on our YouTube. It's Computing Councils of Canada. So if you just search that up, it's on our YouTube. I do recommend watching that again just to see the content that you missed. It was very introductory, but Lucas did go over some things that are really important and that you can build on after this lesson. So I really recommend that. But again, just to reiterate about the attendance. So if you guys watch the live stream after the live stream has been posted, it does not count towards your attendance for the bootcamp. But don't worry, you only have to attend 4 out of 5 bootcamp days or sessions in order to be on track for your certificate. So if you missed yesterday's, that's fine. Just make sure that you attend the next few. I'm just gonna wait a little bit. I see that the chat is really lively right now, so you guys can just be chatting with each other. I love that. But yeah, again, if you guys did have questions from yesterday that did not get answered or got cut off, I'm so sorry. But today we will have another Q&A where you guys can ask your questions. But yeah, so maybe if you had your questions or you remember them or if you noted them down, just remember to ask during the Q&A session, which is towards the end. We're reaching about 100 participants, so I guess I will wait a few minutes. But yeah. I see a lot of hellos in the chat. Hi, guys. Someone has their hand raised. If it's a technical question about anything cybersecurity related, oh wait, I don't know if that was an accident. I don't see the hand anymore. But if it is a question about the format of the bootcamp or anything that's not technical, you can raise your hand now if you want until we wait for everyone to fill in. But if not, I definitely recommend saving your questions for the Q&A. Okay. I see 2 hands raised. So if you guys again have a question about like Tanvi and Salma, sorry if I pronounced your name wrong. But if you guys want to just unmute or say it in the chat.
I just had a question about the quiz.
Oh,
Sorry. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I just had a question about the quiz because it didn't tell us the score. Is that something we're meant to keep track of or that the Computing Council will keep track of?
Yeah, we will keep track of that, and then at the end of the bootcamp, we will let you know if you have achieved your certificate or not. But if you do want more information on that, I would recommend maybe emailing us. Our email is going to be displayed at the end of the session, so we'll have our team look deeper into that. But yeah, we will email you.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
No problem.
I had a question that you said you will email us the resources. How can I access the resources and the slides from yesterday?
Yeah, we did have someone post it in the chat. But if I don't know, maybe if you want to take a screenshot or whatever of, we do have like a slide for the resources. So, Lucas went over some resources yesterday, but any external resources we're going to be sending after the whole bootcamp. So after the 29th, we will email that to you. But yeah, so if you're looking for that, just wait after the bootcamp ends. But if you're really eager to get started, like a few of the resources that Lucas talked about yesterday, then you can just note them down or whatever when he mentions them again.
Also, the quizzes are just what the QR code is there, right? Nothing else?
Yeah, it's the only way you can access the quiz is through the QR code. in this meeting, or if you're watching the YouTube live stream. But yeah,
Thank you so much.
no problem. Okay, it's 6:05, so I will get started. Again, if you were here yesterday, a lot of this is going to be a lot of maybe repetition. So, yeah, but just here for the people who are maybe not here yesterday or who missed yesterday's session, that's totally fine. But just to reiterate, my name is Natri. I am the director of communications at C-Cube, so I'm just going to be introducing today's event. But yeah, so again, welcome to Level with C-Cube. So if you missed yesterday's session, that is totally fine. Just remember that, again, you have to attend at least 4 of the 5 sessions. So if you missed yesterday's, just make sure that you attend all 4 from now. But this is a 5-day cybersecurity bootcamp. So it's starting from the 20th to the 29th. So today's the 21st. It's our second session. So yeah, I don't want to really repeat a lot of the things. I'm pretty sure most people were here yesterday, but just in case that you weren't. But again, a little introduction. We're one of the biggest student-run tech organizations in Canada. We are partnered up with universities across the country. And so essentially what we do as a council is work together with tech clubs and societies from different schools, and we help them out with different resources, support, connections, and overall we try to unite them all. But yeah, that's a little bit about us. We do have our own events from time to time, like this one, and so again, I feel like if that's any repetition, I just I don't want to bore you guys. But yeah, so just a little overview. This is our schedule for the bootcamp. So yesterday was our first day. Today is our second session, and today we will be going more into more advanced topics. So this lesson is going to be a little bit more, I guess, content filled than yesterday. Yesterday it was just the basics. But again, if you do have any questions for our facilitator, Lucas, you can just drop them in the chat during the Q&A session. And if you do have questions about the boot camps or about the format of the boot camps, that are things that we handle. So you can drop them in the chat or email us, and our email will be displayed at the end of the session, so maybe you can note that down and then email us later. But yeah, so this is our little schedule that we will be following for the event. Just a reminder that our next session we will have our industry speakers coming, so maybe have your questions ready for that. But yeah. Okay, so again, just to reiterate, this again, if it's repetitive, I'm super sorry, but these are just some requirements that we want to make sure that you guys know. So our first requirement is that you must at least attend 4 out of 5 sessions. So I feel like I've said that 3 times, but yeah, just so you guys know, our second requirement is that you must complete all challenges within the deadline. So that deadline is 3 hours after the session has ended. So in my time, in Toronto time, that is 11 p.m. But if you guys are in different time zones, make sure that you convert that, because we don't want you mixing that up. And then our last requirement is that you must attain an 80% average across all 4 or 5 quizzes to pass. And if you did all 5, we will count the 4 best quizzes. So that is something that we did not mention yesterday, but yeah, just in case you guys did not know. Yeah, so again, this is repetitive from yesterday, but just to reiterate, we do have some etiquette that we expect from you guys as learners. So please make sure that you guys remain muted when the facilitator, Lucas, is speaking. And of course, your cameras are welcome. We would love to see your faces. Yesterday, we had no cameras, so maybe we can change that today. But our second kind of request is that you guys ask questions in the chat during the session, and you may raise your hand to speak during our Q&A session, which is towards the end. But yeah, you can unmute and speak when you guys are called upon if you raise your hand, so that we know who wants to speak, and just so that it's organized. And yeah, our third request is that you guys please maintain a level of professionalism when you're speaking to our facilitator or our guest speakers in the chat and with your mic. Again, this is a learning environment, so please treat it as such. And our last notice is that our sessions may be recorded. So as I mentioned, we are live streaming this on our YouTube in case people do miss the event or want to see it after. So it is on our YouTube. So if you search up Computing Councils of Canada, you can find it there. So if you're, if you don't want your photo on YouTube, maybe don't turn your camera on. But yeah, that's a little precaution. And if you guys are watching, if you have any friends who may be watching on the YouTube live, the chat will be closed on the YouTube, but if you guys do have questions, make sure that you ask them in our Discord channel. There we will be able to see all the questions and respond to you guys if you do. But yeah, so again, all the boring stuff is done, and we're gonna be handing it over to Lucas, who you guys met yesterday. But yeah.
All right. So, hi everyone again. For those who haven't seen me yesterday, my name is Lucas, and I'm a third-year computer science student at John Abbott College from Montreal. And basically, in summary, I'm a huge cybersecurity enthusiast, and I mostly self-learn. And I love doing side projects on the side related to cybersecurity, specifically hardware hacking, and back when I was 10 years old, even video game hacking. So that's a little bit of a summary of me for those who didn't know me yesterday. Yeah, so let's go into. Someone has their camera on. Yeah, so I will be sharing my screen now. Okay. So, all right. So I hope everyone can see my screen, right? Okay. So that's me. Now, basically for today's session, okay, so we did talk mainly about, like last time, we mainly talked about the core concepts of cybersecurity and just like a small intro. But today we'll be talking more about the different types of threats, or at least the most common threats. We'll be talking about social engineering, human hacking. Yes, I know human hacking. How could you do that? How to spot a threat, and of course, a few tools and resources that you could use within your cybersecurity journey. Yeah, career tie-in, maybe a few project ideas. We'll see, and then of course the Q&A session at the end. Okay, so let's start. Oh, actually, yeah. So just quick recap of session one. We talked about cybersecurity, CIA trad. We also gave some real world case studies, and gave a lot of different types of positions inside of the cybersecurity landscape that you can get either as a beginner, as a as a medium experienced cybersecurity specialist, and then a more advanced cybersecurity specialist. But yeah, so now for the actual content of today's session. So we're going to be talking about cyber threats and knowing your enemy and common tactics inside of the cyber world. So just to start off, before we go into any type of content, I want to ask you guys a question to see how skilled you guys are already, to see where you guys are at already in your cybersecurity knowledge. So which of the following is not a malware, right? So we got rootkit, adware, packet sniffer, and dropper. Okay, we will be covering what these are later, or pretty much the next slide. But just leave your comments in the chat, and I want to see what you guys think. So I'll give you guys around like a few seconds. Okay. I know these names sound a bit funny. What is a dropper? What's a packet sniffer? How do you sniff packets? I don't know. I do know, but it sounds funny. Okay. So I guess you guys pretty much have the idea. Okay. So the answer to this, okay, is a packet sniffer. All right. So if you got packet sniffer, good job, because you got the answer correct. So essentially what a packet sniffer is, it's just communication, of course, throughout networks. They use packets. And a packet sniffer is essentially a software that you can use regardless of it. You don't infect something with it. When you're doing a man-in-the-middle attack, what you can do is that you can intercept the traffic between two devices and analyze the packets that come through them. And you would do so by using a packet sniffer to sniff or collect the packets within the communication. But now what about the rest? What is a rootkit? What is adware? And what is a dropper? Okay, so now those all types of malware, okay? And we got a bunch of different types of malware in today's landscape. So starting off with virus. So we've mostly heard of what viruses are, right? But what exactly are viruses? So it's essentially a type of malware that infects files or programs and spreads when those files are opened or executed. So this often means that it needs a host file to attach itself to. So this is often like a Word document or a .exe file, and often spreads through email attachments, infected USBs, or pirated software. And the effect of viruses is most often corrupted files, slows down your systems, and also opens backdoors for other types of malware. So now worms, okay? So we actually did have an example of a worm yesterday, if you were there, but what exactly is a worm? Not the actual bug. What a worm is in cybersecurity is a self-replicating type of malware that spreads without needing a host file or user action. So it does this by exploiting network vulnerabilities to move from one system to another automatically. And this can cause network congestion, data theft, or act as a delivery mechanism for ransomware. So most of the time, essentially, the goal of worms is that, say you download a worm on your computer, okay? Its goal might be to corrupt or encrypt all of your files, okay? And once it's done that, right, it doesn't just want to die, it wants to infect more people. So what it'll do, it'll use its ability, okay, to be connected to the network to spread to other computers that it can be connected to. One example would be the I love you virus. We didn't cover this one yesterday, but this is also a very, very big cybersecurity incident that happened in May of 2000. And it's essentially a worm that spread throughout emails. So what would happen is that someone would get an email saying, I love you, and it would have a attachment where people thought it was like a love letter. And obviously, if you get a love letter, especially people back in 2000, they didn't know anything about malware and they just received a love letter. So they're obviously going to download it and open it. And what that did was allow the worm to infect the device. Okay. And what it would do once it's infected the device, it would send emails to a bunch of other recognized emails that is on that computer. So by doing so, it would keep spreading out. And yeah, that's an example of a worm. Of course, the WannaCry worm that we talked about yesterday is a good example. So it started as a worm before it encrypted its data. Now for Trojan. So also known as like the Trojan horse malware, which was named after the Greek myth. So for those who don't know what the myth is about, it's forget what year exactly, but it's essentially when the Greeks tried to trick the Trojans by giving them a big wooden horse, a massive wooden horse, or was it the other way around? Anyways, either the Greeks or the Trojans gave a gift to one another, and they thought, wow, this was an amazing gift, a nice huge statue of a wooden horse, like thank you. But actually what was happening is that the Greeks, or the Trojans, I think it was the Greeks, they were all hidden within this wooden horse, okay? And then eventually they all broke out, and by doing this, they were able to bypass the Trojans' guards and their big gates. So essentially, as the similar thing inside of cybersecurity, it's a malware that essentially enters your computer by looking legit, but in reality is malware. So it's disguised as legitimate software. Then for spyware, so this one, it's in the name. It basically monitors activity secretly within or on your computer. So this often can be like the keystrokes of a user, also known as keyloggers. So it can just sit on someone's computer and just listen to the keystrokes that the person types in and just wait for, like, for example, if you type in your password, it'll register that and send that information remotely. It can also go through your browser history, your passwords, and even the most scariest is activate your webcams. It can spy on you through your webcam. So this actually happened to Linus. From what I understand, most of you guys are in tech, so you guys probably know who Linus Tech Tips is. And he got spied on by, I believe, spyware. Those of you who might know what I'm talking about. And then there's also adware, okay? So ad as in advertisement. So it's essentially a type of malware that automatically delivers unwanted advertisements, usually in the form of pop-ups or browser redirects. So oftentimes these pop-ups will be like a little, a little message to like, pique your interest and trick you into clicking, the pop-up, so it can further spread or infect your computer or to redirect you to different, to malicious websites. And then there's rootkits. Okay, so rootkits are pretty interesting. Um, they are malware designed to hide the presence of other types of malware by modifying the operating system or core system files. Okay, so rootkits are very, very, very advanced types of malware, often used by persistent threats, also known as APTs. And they are very, very, very difficult to catch or delete. And it's because usually these types of malware are stored in locations where they can't, or where they can load before or alongside the OS. So that makes them very, very hard to locate. You can't just find them inside of your file system. And that just makes them very hard to detect or remove, because they initiate as you log in, right? So even if you close your computer and reload, it'll run even before you can even access your information. So that often requires reinstalling your entire OS to get rid of, or sometimes even like your what's it called? Like completely remove any type of software on your computer and upload it with new types of like firmware or like a whole new operating system. And yeah, also the dropper, essentially mentioned in the last slide, it's not a malware, but it is a type of software that installs other malware. So it's basically like a dropper. And then honorable mentions. So there's one thing called PUPS. So PUPS, it's not the dog. It stands for potentially unwanted programs. So these in themselves aren't malware, but what they do is often types of software that can just lead to very like annoying things on your computer, right? It can slow down your computer. It can be bloatware. It can just spam you with like little pop-ups, even if they're not malicious. So basically, it's just like annoying types of software, but it's not malicious in any way. One good example that I can think of this would be surprisingly antivirus softwares. For some reason, a lot of computers come with antivirus softwares pre-installed on them, and they'll just absolutely spam you until you activate them or until you re-register your account with them. So that, like, surprisingly is a form of potentially unwanted program because it's annoying. So you don't want it. And of course, installer.exe downloads. So what I mean by this as well is if you've downloaded something online, especially if it's sketchy, when you run the installer, it'll often convince you to try to download other things alongside it. And yeah, it'll do it like very much in your face, and it'll do it pretty consecutively. So you just kind of get annoying and you're like, okay, whatever, download, 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 whatever. But oftentimes these extra downloads alongside could be types of potentially unwanted programs. So yeah. So now let's talk a bit more about what goes under the hood of one of these types of malware, okay? Just to give you guys an example of the complexity of how computers often get infected. So we'll start with ransomware because ransomware is a pretty prominent type of malware that has led to many of the largest types of cyber attacks in the world. So yeah, essentially what happens, okay, for a ransomware to activate, it takes initial access. And how this happens is often through phishing emails with infected attachments or links, and exploits remote services like RDP, or often is downloaded by drive-by downloads. So essentially what drive-by downloads are is like when something downloads on your computer just automatically really quickly or just completely silently. So that is often the entry point for types of malware. And if you don't know what phishing is, that's fine. We're going to talk a lot about it later in this session. But that's essentially how ransomware, reaches a device in the first place. It's often through emails, attachments, or downloads that you don't even realize happens. And then is the execution. So the malware is then often executed using PowerShell, so like cmd.exe basically, or lulbins. That also stands for, I think it's living off the land binaries. And yeah, uses native Windows tools like wscript.exe or mshta.exe. So it basically uses trusted system tools to evade antivirus detection. So it uses that um, essentially to run itself without peaking any, without being caught, by antivirus. Um, but yeah, by doing that, the ransomware payload is dropped and begins to run silently. So once it's executed, okay, it's running on your computer. Now it wants to stay on your computer. So how does it do this? It uses persistence, okay, and it does this by ensuring that the malware remains active even after you reboot. And this can be achieved by modifying the Windows registry keys. So for those who don't know what registry keys are, they're kind of like folders in a file system, but not really a file system, but they're kind of more in the Windows registry database. And they serve as containers for other types of keys known as like subkeys and values. And what those values and keys store is configuration settings and other informations for operating system and applications. So by doing that, they kind of stick themselves instead of kind of like important registry keys where aren't often deleted. So yeah, and they might also create scheduled tasks or install services that auto launch the malware. So even you don't have to run it, it just runs by itself. And once it does this, it might still not have the permissions that it needs, right? So it does what's called privilege escalation, and it spreads itself throughout the device. So it can gather credentials throughout your computer using tools like Mimikatz, which extracts passwords from memory, and then uses things like PSExec or WUMI or SMB or RDP to move laterally across the network, and it tries to escalate privileges to the admin system level. So essentially, by manipulating or not manipulating, by using tools like Mimikatz, PSExec, or WMI, it tries to give itself permissions that allows it to do more on a system. So, for example, it's just giving itself more power by using these tools that are pre-installed on Windows systems. Um, and it often targets domain controllers to spread to as many systems as possible. So when I mean spread, it doesn't. It could also just be spreading to other devices as well that do have the permissions to cause more significant data loss. And then it uses surprisingly encryption, but not the good encryption that you want. So it uses encryption to encrypt files using a combination of AES, which is symmetric, and RSA, which is asymmetric encryption. So first, AES is used to encrypt the files, so that does it like really quickly. And then RSA is used to encrypt the AES key, and then only the attacker has the private key to decrypt it. So, and then once this is done, it deletes any type of backups or copies to prevent the recovery of those files. So obviously, if it's going to encrypt your file and then ask for ransom, there shouldn't be any way for you to, just ignore the ransom payment and just recover them, right? So it does this by running a command like vss admin delete shadows all quiet, and it also may delete event logs. So that's basically just like things that it's done throughout the system. It's kind of just hiding its traces. Disable security software or wipe system restore points. So that's just like preventing any type of way that you could recover the data, making it very, very tricky to, kind of not pay the ransom. And then it uses extortion. So it drops or reaches out to the target with a ransom note, often as like a readme.txt or like a very scary pop-up demanding payment. And it does this in Bitcoin or other types of cryptocurrency. And Bitcoin is a lot more safer because like if you were to pay with like a e-transfer, for example, you would need their information, or wherever you're sending the money is often tied to their personal information, right? Or banking information, right? But Bitcoin often it's not completely safe, but it does evade the chances of when you send the money to, you can't really figure out who you're sending the money to exactly. So yeah. So now moving on. So we've talked a lot about ransomware, but what actually makes ransomware scary is the pop-ups that it gives. So oftentimes when you open your computer or these pop-ups kind of come up, you look at this and it kind of like does this not look super scary over here? All the red, the red UI, the dramatic styling. And as you can see here, look, it basically just gives you a little, it basically gives you a little tutorial on how you can pay them. And as you can see down here, it says to transfer around $300 worth of Bitcoin to the address. So,
Excuse me.
oh, yes.
Sorry. Do you mind hiding the meetgoogle.com sharing your screen thing?
Oh, that's
Like,
still there?
yeah.
Oh,
Thank you.
okay, sorry. Yeah, so here's one example of ransomware. And then there's another one here, okay? So this is another type of really popular ransomware that this is called the NotPetya malware. And this is the alert that it gave to basically computers globally. And this, like, as you can tell, it's obviously really scary. If I saw this pop up on my computer, I would instantly go into like a fetal position and cry for the next 70 hours. So yeah, so it's not only just like the fear of all your files being encrypted. Oftentimes they try to make their messages look all real and scary to kind of push you to, to follow their orders. So yeah, and also talking a bit more about malware as well. So how exactly does malware get installed on your computer, and how can it or cannot be detected on your computer, right? Because there are antivirus softwares that exist. And oftentimes what they do is that they try to pick up patterns in the code of certain types of files that could potentially be forms of malware. So it does this by picking up patterns. So often what hackers would do is try to make their code look like absolute gibberish. So for the people here who actually do know how to code, you probably don't even know what this is doing. It looks like absolute gibberish, but this code actually does run all this gibberish here. It saves it into variables that also are obfuscated, and then it all parses it together to create coherent commands for the computer. But for the human eye, or for antivirus softwares who haven't detected this type of pattern of malware before, it might not detect it. So that's a bit of what malware kind of looks like for those who are curious. Yeah, so here are some useful malware services. So first of all is any.run. So any.run is a very good business grade cybersecurity analysis service that essentially allows you to analyze certain types of malware, and it'll create reports on whether that type of file is malicious or not. And then there's CyberChef. So I'm actually going to give you guys a quick demo on this, because CyberChef is a very, very good tool that I use very, very often. It's essentially a convenient tool for encoding, decoding, hashing, and basically just data conversion, okay? So I'll give you guys a quick demo on how CyberChef is used for malware purposes, okay? So yeah, this is it. So this is CyberChef. And what you'll see on the left side is a bunch of different types of data conversion techniques that you can use. And for this case, I'm going to go to the hashing, right? And it'll give you a whole bunch of different types of hashing algorithms that you can use, or that you can, that you can hash into. So, for example, let's say I want to hash a message using SHA-2. Okay, I'll drag and drop it to the recipe section, and then it'll give a few more parameters that you can use. So the size here is basically the amount of bits that the secure hashing algorithm uses. But for just to make the message smaller, we'll use 256 bits, which amounts to around 64 hexadecimal characters. So where does this become useful? So here, the input, if I were to type anything, as you can see the output, let me actually zoom in just quite a bit. You'll see that this value changes, right? Even if I go back to nothing, it'll be E3B0. If I type a bunch of stuff, it'll change. If I go back to nothing, it'll go right back to it. So this is a mathematical formula, meaning that no matter what you input, it'll always equal the same hashing output. So how does this become useful? So I quickly covered this in yesterday's session, but you can use this when you're downloading a file to see whether you can use it in integrity, basically. So when you're downloading a file, if the person that you're downloading the file for says the hashing output is supposed to look like this when you hash your file, then you know that you got our download that's untampered and the actual download that we wanted you to get. So I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a demo of what that kind of looks like, right? So say I downloaded a PNG, right? So what I'm going to do really quick, okay, is take this map PNG image and I can drag and drop it here. So what it'll do, it'll take all this information from the input and convert it into a hash that is 64 characters long, right? So even if I delete it and put it back again, right, it'll always equal to the same output. So I'm going to copy paste this just so we can remember what it looks like and put it in here. So now what happens if this image is altered, right? So I'm going to go here and actually modify the image, right? So I'm going to do so. Let's just make one tiny little modification. So I'm going to take the little pen. How can I change the color? Yeah, see black. So I'm going to add a little dot down in the bottom right here. Okay. Now you can barely notice this change. As you can see, the image looks nearly the same, but it's just a tiny little dot that modified the information, right? So I'm going to save this as a copy. Okay. I'm going to, where did I put it? I'm going to put it in my pictures folder, map 2, and save it. Now, what happens if we use this image instead? It's basically the same image, right? So let's use this image instead. Okay, now look at this. As you can see, the output changed. That is not the same one as we had before, but the image looks basically the same, right? So that's how you know. If the hashing is different, then you know that the picture is slightly modified. Even if we go back, okay, put the old photo, as you can see, the output is the same. So a really popular example of a service that uses this would be actually the Kali website page, or the download page, sorry. So if you want to download Kali Linux, which hopefully we have some time in the later sessions so that you guys can download this, because Kali Linux is essentially an operating system, a Linux Debian operating system that has a bunch of hacking tools pre-installed. So it's amazing for beginners to start hacking because they don't have to download everything manually. But what I want to show you guys here is the installer. So it has a little button here that says some. And what it'll give you is the SHA-256 hash, right? So that means if you download this, I'm not going to download it because it's a large download and my Wi-Fi is not that fast. But as you can see, it gives the hashing algorithm. So if I were to download this and hash it myself, I know that the download was successful and that it was unaltered purely just by comparing it to this hash. If it's the same, then I know I'm safe. If it's not, that means somewhere within the download, someone altered it, or this, if I download it from somewhere else and I see the hash is different, that means wherever else I downloaded this, say a friend gives me the download file, I know that they modified something on this image because it is different. So that's a good way that it's used for malware and detecting whether a file you're downloading is actually the safe version of the file. And then going back to another type of resource is No More Ransom. So No More Ransom is a very good, powerful ransom detection and remediation service. So of course, when you face ransomware, right, there's not much you can do. Most of your files are corrupted or encrypted, and you have to pay a fine. And there's nothing else you can do but pay the fine to get your data back. But actually, in reality, most of the times they won't they won't bring it back. But yeah, so if ever you do get ransomware on your computer, it's a very good resource that you can use. Looks a bit like this. And yeah, it's a very good way to get most of your data back without having to pay for the ransom. And this is not a paid promotion. This is actually just a really good, very good resource for you to use. Worst comes to worst. So now let's go into a little bit of a question, right? So in the comments, I want you guys to say, if you had a .enc file, if you know what that is, and a ransom note on your computer, what would be the first thing you would do? Okay. I'll give you I'll give you guys 10 seconds and then I'll explain what an ENC file, maybe it'll make a bit more sense. But yeah, if you find a .enc file and a ransom note, what would be the first thing you would do? Obviously, the first thing would be not to panic, right? I will give the answers after this really quick, but I want to exercise you guys to see if you guys are learning anything. Okay. Yeah. Also, just a little hint, a .enc file is basically just an encrypted file. It's the encrypted file type. So if you're seeing .enc inside of your files, you know that the files that you used to have there are now encrypted, which most people in most cases won't really encrypt their files, especially if you're not technical. So if you're seeing that, that's immediately a red flag that you are falling victim to ransomware. And of course, a type of ransom note. You can see this in a .txt file or just a pop-up. Okay. So now drum roll. Okay, so what the answer is. So first thing you want to do if you're facing, having .enc files on your computer or you have a ransom note. Number one would be to disconnect your device immediately. So unplug your Wi-Fi, Ethernet, and Bluetooth to stop the malware from spreading. It also prevents the ransomware from accessing network drives as well. So even if it's not directly infecting other devices, it can do so by infecting shared drives that two devices are both using. Lots of companies use this to easily share files. So that's a quick way for it to contaminate other devices within the network without having to directly reach that device from point A to point B. And when I mean disconnect, it doesn't mean shut off your computer, okay? Don't do that yet. Number two would be to inform the security and IT team that is closest to you. So whether that would be the service I previously gave, so no more ransom, reaching out to them, or if you're working, say at a bank, or you're in your full-time position, and your work computer has a .enc file or encrypted files and a ransom note, you want to reach out to them immediately. Don't be scared of telling them that you're going to be in trouble. You're going to be in trouble if they hear that you waited a few hours before telling them. So just telling them immediately is the best thing you can do, because many times that you download ransomware, it's not your fault. Hackers are getting so good at tricking people to download things like this that it's almost, you can't be blamed for downloading ransomware. So it would be definitely inform your IT and security team. And then third would be to capture forensic data. So whatever you do, do not delete the ransom note or anything. Don't even delete the encrypted files. And this is used for forensic evidence. So essentially, within like remediation pipelines, often what the cybersecurity teams or remediation teams for disasters, what they'll do is actually study and analyze the ransomware. So they can try to understand ways that, how did it happen? How can they detect it in the future? Adding it to their databases, running it inside of a sandbox to see, to replicate it and see how it can be this, how to be combated. So maintaining as much data as possible is absolutely necessary for increasing your chances of recovering from a ransomware attack. So, and yeah, also quick tips that you should not do is obviously pay the ransom. Don't ever pay the ransom, because I can guarantee you, like 99% of the time, if you pay the ransom, you will not get your stuff back, because most of the time, these are kind of wide scale attacks, and the people who run these attacks, they probably didn't go throughout the effort of coding the logic to unencrypt all your files, or they don't have the type of process to have someone physically manually go out through your files and unencrypt your files. I can guarantee you that's never going to happen. So don't ever pay the ransom. That might be different if it's a very, very large company. But if it's just you on your own personal computer, I would never pay the forensics data. Reach out to services to see how you can recover your data. And of course, would be to try to recover your data. So whether you're someone who is a cybersecurity specialist and you know that ransomware exists and you're ready for ransomware attacks, what you'll often have is backups that you can resort to return all of your data back to a certain point. For those who have experiences using virtual machines, most virtual machines have like what's called a recovery point. So if you get ransomware, you can just revert the entire machine into an old version that didn't have the ransomware. That's why most people use virtual machines to kind of just blow up or test different types of ransomware to kind of see what happens, because VMs kind of contain the malware within their own environments and doesn't spread out to the actual computer that's running the virtual machine. It is possible, but very, very unlikely, very difficult to do. But yeah, that's what to do if you get attacked by ransomware. So now, this is another very, very common attack that you'll come across or hear in the cybersecurity space, and it is DDoS, and it stands for Distributed Denial of Service. So essentially, DDoS in of itself isn't essentially, there is something that's called just denial of service. Denial of service is essentially just the tactics or an attack where you can just basically shut down a service by using different types of methods, whether it like exploiting a vulnerability on a server, stuff like that. But distributed denial of service, okay, that's the more common one. And that means flooding a server or a network with fake traffic in order to shut it down. And you do this by using thousands or even millions of devices. So that's what the distributed means that spreading out or a bunch of different devices that are distributed, all trying to flood a server and send requests at the same time. Oftentimes, the targets of these types of attacks are websites, game servers, APIs, or very big companies or governments. Or for each one of these like websites, it's often very high, high ranking services, because there is like, you can actually hire people to do DDoS attacks for you. You can pay for botnets. So oftentimes when you would pay for something like this, would be very expensive. So most people only do these on very, very big services. Yeah, basically the how is just using botnets. So botnets is basically just a network of infected devices. So this includes whether IoT devices, so like Raspberry Pis or different types of devices that are connected to networks, or basically just like PCs, so your workstations, your laptops. So yeah, essentially botnets is basically just a whole network of computers that the actual owners of those computers probably don't even know that their computer is part of a botnet. And some type of process in the background is silently being commanded by a hacker somewhere else in the world to try to commit a DDoS attack. And yeah, basically the goal is to overload, slow down, or even crash the server entirely, because if your computer or your server, okay, tries to process too many things at once, it might freak out. It might run into unexpected errors where sometimes it just can completely crash, and that's the goal of a DDoS attack. And now, how would you protect against these very powerful types of attacks, right? That are used for very high level or high what's the word, like very important services, right? You can do so by using rate limiting. So fun little like anecdote, or I guess like, for those who know, if you've played Minecraft, right, and you've played on Minecraft servers, you've probably noticed that like Minecraft servers kind of like, what's a good example? I think like Hypixel, if too many people are inside the servers, they'll actually put you in a queue until enough people leave for you to join. That's kind of like rate limiting. It's basically just limiting the amount of people who can request the access or request access to your services or to your websites. Another thing would be traffic filtering. So I gotta catch my breath. By using firewalls and cloud DDoS protection. So firewalls, for those who don't know, it's basically just like a service between, like basically in simple terms, that's standing in front of your services that can basically detect the different types of requests, the different type of IPs, and basically, where IPs are trying to access before actually accessing them. And what firewalls will do will often drop the requests, or yeah, basically just any type of requests that don't that don't fall into any type of policies. So, for example, if there are policies, right? If you're a government agency, right, and you detect that an IP that is from a country that you have sanctions on, if you detect an IP from that region, you can just drop it from reaching your services. That's an example. And also cloud DDoS protection. Well, I'll actually bring up an example of this soon. But yeah, and also another example of how you can protect against this is load balancing. So basically distributing the incoming requests across multiple servers. Obviously, if you have one server trying to intake an insane amount of requests, it'll create a lot of overhead, or like it'll basically overload it. So distributing that across multiple servers to process it could help save you from a DDoS attack. And also content delivery networks. So basically, just like when there's a huge amount of a huge amount of traffic, like traffic spikes, it'll basically absorb that and just like drop some of the requests. So now, what are the motivations of some DDoS attacks? So one of them is hacktivism. So a lot of protesters or kind of like extremist groups, you could say, have access to botnets. So oftentimes when there's protests, especially against certain types of organizations that they disagree with, they'll use these botnets to try to take down their services. Also, there's extortion, of course. If the service is small enough and they're not able to recover from a DDoS attack, the attackers could use or request some type of payment to stop the attack. And of course, revenge reasons as well. So targeting companies after a dispute and competition. And just for a real world example, so in 2018, GitHub was actually hit by one of the largest DDoS attacks of the time. And it was bombarded by roughly 1.35 terabits worth of data per second. Okay. So if you think that downloading GTA 5 is a big download, that's nothing to the amount of data that is being sent to GitHub here every second. So yeah, and basically in this attack, the attackers use memcache servers, which is essentially a misconfigured caching services to basically amplify the traffic to reach the certain amount of 1.35 terabits worth of data. But luckily, GitHub was only down for 5 to 10 minutes, right? So that might not sound a lot. Many people probably didn't even notice, but that's because they use a Kami Prolexic, which is, for example, like I mentioned earlier, it's a cloud-based DDoS protection provider to basically reroute and filter the traffic to help aid GitHub to kind of get back online. So yeah. So now let's go into social engineering. Okay, so social engineering is a very, very, very important aspect of cybersecurity. So what is social engineering? So it's essentially the practice of manipulating individuals into providing confidential information or performing actions that they wouldn't otherwise do to help compromise their security. And the goal of this is often to steal credentials, personal or legal information, like your social insurance number. I hear someone's mic is on. If you have your mic.
Lucas, you're also muted now.
Have I been muted this whole time?
No, just recently. So I think somebody just muted everybody. So yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Thank you for letting me know. Okay, yeah. Sorry about that, guys. Okay, so continuing the presentation. So yeah, and social engineering is usually done by using psychological manipulation, basically just manipulation or trickery rather than actual technical hacking. So it's exploiting the human mind, like the human trust, human curiosity, and fear to achieve certain attackers' goals. And where can you usually find social engineering is through emails, SMS, phone calls, advertising, etc. So before I continue in the next slides, I actually want you guys to visit this Google phishing quiz on the right here. So if you can scan the QR code, this will bring you to a Google phishing quiz. Okay, so I'll give you guys around 10 seconds to scan that and maybe do it for a little bit. But yeah, social engineering, you've definitely heard of it before or seen it. I'm sure you have a very large spam folder inside of your in your email inbox of a bunch of emails of like, hey, you just won the lottery, or you have unpaid taxes or stuff like that, right? That's social engineering. That's an example, right? So now continuing to the next slide. So if you scan the QR code, I'm sorry, but you've been tricked. So that's actually just a little exercise to show you guys how social engineering works. So um, so basically, I used the QR code, and you weren't able to see the where it led to, right? And by thinking, right, oh, it's from a trusted, a trusted boot camp. Um, Also, it is a Rickroll for those who didn't go. It's a YouTube video Rickroll. But yeah, essentially, that's how social engineering works. You scanned this QR code and you trust me, so you went to it. And especially because it's a QR code, it's very unreadable. If it's a URL, you can easily read to where it redirects to. But using a QR code, that's actually one thing nowadays that you'll see pretty common. So think twice before, scanning pamphlets that you see inside of the city, or little like promotion cards that you see at like restaurants. People will actually make stickers of QR codes that redirect them to malicious websites and put them on things. And because you're using, your camera or you're scanning with the QR code, most times you don't actually see where it's redirecting you to. Okay, so that was a fun little exercise for those who got rickrolled there. I had to do it. I just had to do it. But yeah, so now going into the different types of social engineering. So that was actually called quishing. Okay, but there are multiple types. So there is called phishing. So phishing is just the classic scam emails. So this could be like getting invoices or job offers like that are suspicious. You can get vishing, which is essentially voice phishing. So essentially just like phone calls, like customer support. Another very good example of phishing is because of the rise of AI nowadays, you've probably seen on the news how people are getting, or probably yourself, you've gotten a phone call from someone from an unknown number that sounds like a relative of yours, requesting for money or saying like, hey, I just got arrested and I need bail, send money to here. And oftentimes a lot of elderly people will fall into that because they don't know about AI, and because it sounds like their grandkids or their family, they can fall to this, right? So that's an example of phishing. Then there's smishing, which is text messaging. uh, so yeah, SMS meaning text messages, and phishing. So you've probably gotten a few of these if you've had a phone for long enough. And then there's also spear phishing. So this is a specific type of targeting of phishing where you specifically target a certain individual. So it's more personalized. So if you've noticed if you've received a phishing email before and you know what I'm talking about, you've probably seen how many of the emails are like, hey, user, or they don't even say your name at all. In these cases, say I wanted to hack a celebrity, right? That would be spear phishing because I know who my target is. I know their name. I might know some personal information about them. That's spear phishing. Most of the cases for phishing is just a bunch of spam. What they'll do, they'll have scripts that just send emails to a list of a bunch of people. This can be from big credential leaks of like emails. So that's the difference between just spam phishing and spear phishing. And there's also whaling. So this is targeting high profile individuals. So that would mean like rich people, CEOs, and you can obviously the benefit of trying to fish high profile individuals because that's, if they might have like very high level access to certain things like government officials, or, they have big bank accounts, right? And then of course, phishing, which is QR code phishing. So essentially by being unable to see the URL, you were tricked into going somewhere because you don't know where you're going. And by doing that, I was able to redirect you to a quote unquote malicious site. I tricked you. Yeah, and some tactics that social engineering or different types of phishing may use is number one, pretexting. So this is used a lot in phishing. So it's essentially when someone gives a type of scenario or fake story to kind of back up a demand or something. So one example could be, a for example, someone calling their work saying, "Yeah, I'm this person's wife, and I need access to their computer, but it's their work computer, and I don't have the password. And by using some trickery, maybe playing some sounds of some babies crying in the background, that'll kind of scare whoever, whether it's like customer support of whatever the company you're trying to hack. They might think, okay, yeah, this person's legit. It's the wife of one of our trusted employees. Sure, I'll give them the password of their employee login or their computer, right? By pretexting, you're giving that falsified scenario to kind of like back up your story and what you're requesting for. And then there's baiting. So baiting, kind of like fish bait, you fall for something because you're kind of curious. You want to know what happens, right? So this can happen a lot by, grabbing USBs that you find on the ground that might be infected. This is known as a bad USB. So when you plug it into your computer, it's not actually containing any information. It's a type of USB that'll quickly inject malware onto your computer by using keystrokes. There's something that's called a USB rubber ducky by Hack5, if you know what I'm talking about. If you know, you know. And also by pop-ups. So by just seeing a pop-up saying, hey, you just got a discount code, click here. You might be baited into following something, by your own decision. Then there's tailgating. So this is more something like physical. You've probably, if you've had an internship before, you've probably heard that when you're entering the building with your ID, don't ever leave the door open for anyone, even if you're trying to be nice, because an attacker can easily just look like an employee, have a nice suit on, and basically just walk in because you were trying to be nice. That's a form of social engineering because you're thinking, hey, I'm just letting an employee in, but in reality, it could be an attacker. It could be, someone with like a firearm or something that wants to do harm. Also, login portals, right? So obviously, phishing, if you want to trick someone into providing certain types of information, you can do so by rerouting them to a website that has, like, for example, a Google login page. And they think, oh, yeah, this is legit. Yeah, I'm just logging into Google. Yeah, right. And then they put in their information, but their information is actually sent to the hacker. It's not sent to Google. So login portals are used very often. And I actually have a project where I use this, and it's a very fun project idea if you kind of want to break into like cybersecurity and, very, very easy programming. I'll actually show you guys now kind of what it looks like. So for example, right here. So if you guys can see my screen right now, this is not a real Google login page, right? This is actually a file that I have on my computer, as you can see on the top here. It's just an HTML file that looks exactly like Google, behaves like Google, even if you use tricks like hovering over the forgotten password, create account, it even says on the bottom left corner, it routes to a real Google page. It even has all the languages here that you can do, right? But what happens here is that if you were to put your information, at mail.com, oh, okay, whatever, and then your password, right, and you press next, this would actually send the information to me, right? So this is an example of how like people can craft fake login pages that are very, very convincing to convince you into providing data, right? So yeah, that's just one quick example. So now going back to impersonation. So obviously, a good social engineering tactic is imitating or impersonating someone that your target might know. So whether you're really good at voice impressions or like let's say you're an exact lookalike of someone, you can trick people into giving you certain access to things by making people think that you're someone else. So these are all tactics of social engineering. So now going into how to spot a threat, So you get a phishing email. You get a phishing email, right? How do you know if you're trying, if it's a phishing email, right? How do you know that you're trying to be phished? The number one red flag would be urgency, right? So I'll actually give an example of all of these in the next slide because I actually have, I received a phishing or an SMS smishing message on my phone that I'm going to give you guys a little demo of. That's the textbook example of a phishing attempt. But essentially, one of the red flags that you want to notice is urgency. So when you get an email saying, like, hey, you just got, you just ordered something, right? And it's stuck in customs. And if you don't do something, if you don't click this link in the next 24 hours and resolve it, your package won't be sent to you, right? So by urging someone to act quickly, it often gives people the fear of like, oh my God, I got to act now. So they'll often really easily click on links, not, without thinking about, taking the time to think of what would happen if they would actually click on malicious links. Second of all, if you look at an email or a text message that lacks personalization, that's a very good indicator that it's a phishing email. So a good example would be if it uses hello user rather than your actual full name. Also, an example would be like if your name is, for example, in my case, lucas.lalumiere@gmail.com. If the email uses lucas.lalumiere, right, it's just because it knows who it's sending the email to, right, at least for the first part of the email, it can basically just copy paste that inside of the body of the email and kind of add some type of personalization. But it's not like, you can obviously tell because of the formatting of it. It'll often be lower caps. It'll have like a special character depending on what your email actually looks like. But yeah, essentially a lack of personalization. Also, claiming to be from a trusted company or person is a very good indicator. Like 90% of the times you get a phishing email, it'll be like, hey, we are from Microsoft and we realize that you have a virus on your computer, right? Microsoft would probably never send an email for that. But yeah, they often claim to be someone from a big company or from a service that you use. Another one would be URL and email domains don't match, okay? This is a very good one because obviously if you have an email, okay, the domain, if you don't know, is basically what comes after the @ symbol, right? So as you can see below here, Google @trustedservice.world, the domain would be trustedservice.world, right? So if the email is coming from someone, okay, and you look at the domain, and then they have a URL that they want you to redirect to, okay, but the URL doesn't have the same domain as the person that's sending it, that's often an indicator that it's not a real company that's trying to send it, because oftentimes a company will have a business email, meaning that they'll have a domain for that company, and they'll often try to redirect you to services from that company. So natural URLs and emails should match within an email, right? Second of all would be typos. Obviously, typos can happen if the attacker is from a different country and they might not, they might lack the certain types of grammatical skills as that, to not make typos. So looking out for typos inside of your phishing emails is a very good way to indicate whether it's suspicious or not. And then of course is weird emails, right? So this is pretty much common knowledge or like just straight logic. So if you get an email from someone that's, for example, Google @trustedservice.com, right? That's not what a Google email looks like. It's supposed to be @google.com, right? Or what even is .world? That's a weird email. I've never seen that before. Even if the name is Google, you can easily have the name Google, but you can't easily own the domain Google. Google already owns it, so you can't replicate it. Another red flag would be consumer domains, right? So if you get an email, say from johndoe@gmail.com, claiming to be from, I don't know, Google or Netflix, right? Netflix, they definitely have a domain. They'll have @netflix.com. They won't use a consumer domain like you and I, like gmail.com, right? Unless it's a smaller organization, right? Smaller organizations obviously need to pay for a domain. So sometimes smaller organizations or nonprofit organizations will have gmail.com. But if the email that you're getting is claiming to be from a very big service, and it has a gmail.com or outlook.com, it's often a phishing email. And of course would be timing. So if you get an email saying that your package is going to run late, click on a link to do something during holiday season, that's a trick that hackers exploit. Also would be Prime Day, because a lot of people have packages and they're they're anticipating their packages to come soon. So they'll often fall victim to, emails, that'll say, hey, you're not going to get your package. So, and of course, if you get a business email on the weekends, that might be a bit suspicious, because I don't think anyone that would really be working at a company would send out emails on weekends unless it's automated. But yeah, now going into a quick little demo of a real smishing attempt that I received on my phone, right? So this is the textbook definition of a terrible attempt. So starting off with one, look at the email at the top here. First of all, it's not a phone number that's texting me, it's an email. And look, it looks like absolute gibberish. What is XZFT6, right? But they're claiming to be from US Post. So why is it not from at uspost.com, right? So another thing would be the urgency, right? So as you can see the bottom here, it's going to say, please confirm the zip code address information in the link within 24 hours, right? There's 2 and 1 in there. Within, that's a typo. That's supposed to be within, not within. And 24 hours, that's a sense of urgency. Another thing is the URL it gives, right? So over here, does that URL match anything to do with this email? No, it doesn't, right? So whoever this guy, right, suspicious John Doe over here, he does not work at US Post, right? He's a little snake. He's trying to trick you over here, right? And also very obviously here at the bottom, it's trying to give you a little tutorial on how to access the link. This is basically bypassing, right? If you're using iMessage, they don't allow you to tap on links right away. So by doing this little trick on the bottom here, it's trying to bypass that little that little prevention in place so that you can actually access the link. So yeah, here's the actual corrections that I gave for this guy. I actually sent it to him, but yeah, so as you can see here on the top, who is this guy? Definitely not from US Post. The time is a bit too specific. This kind of looks like it was automated. It's had a script scheduled at a certain time. Typo over here. Urgency. The link is definitely suspicious. So if you get something like this, please report junk. Okay. Now, these are some very, very good tools you can use for phishing. So there are lots of these are good, but I'm actually going to give a little demo for URL scan because I just discovered this recently and it's amazing for detecting whether a URL or an email is actually phishing. So here's a little demo. So when you go to the site, it'll look a bit like this. So urlscan.io. So say you want to search up I don't know a phishing URL off the top of my mind, but if you go to, why are you all caps? Google.com, okay? Do private scan. I hate these. Do this really quick. Please work. Please don't be one of those times where it doesn't actually think I'm a human. Okay, good, it worked. So what it'll do, it'll browse to that site, okay, and basically just scan to see whether it's something that it's detected as malicious in the past. If it's a new site, try to pick up on patterns that could be malicious. So here are the results. So it says that Google Safe Browsing, it'll give the API, it'll give the domain or the date that the domain was created. So that was a long time ago. So obviously it wasn't just created recently for an attacker to try to attack us. And it'll even give you a screenshot of the URL of what it looks like. So if you're trying to be redirected to a page, right, you can at least see of what it looks like to further tell whether it's malicious or not. So yeah, urlscan.io is a great service, and I would take a look at it. There's also good services like VirusTotal, MX Toolbox, which is also good for searching up domains to see whether they're malicious or not, and then PhishTool as well. So that'll be given to you guys as resources. So I would go check them out and add them to your saved tabs on your browsers. Need to drink some water. But yeah, carrying on. So another really good service is Have I Been Pwned, right? So if you've already been in a data breach, right, you want to view the site. Essentially what it'll do is if you search up your email, okay, it'll check its databases and see whether your email shows up in very common database or breaches, right? So I would obviously scan this. And guys, please, this is not another exercise. This is a real QR code. I'm not trying to trick you guys again. But if you go here, I would also save this. This is one of my favorite services that I use to monitor all my emails because I have in the double digits of emails because I like making alternative accounts for gaming accounts. So if you want to see whether they've been breached, You can see where they've been breached, when they've been breached. So this is a very good tool for you to use. So now let's go to the project side of this session, right? So cybersecurity, unlike software development, right? So in software development, if you want to have a project, it's pretty easy because you just need to code something that is somewhat, new, somewhat, shows your ability to understand code and, how you excel at it, right? But for cybersecurity, you're stuck to the niche of making something within cybersecurity, right? So we're going to give you some few examples that you can use to start up your next project, just to give you like a little, little bit of motivation to get you, to put something on your resume and stuff like that. So starting off, here's a quick little project idea. So basically just a simple and impactful automation project that uses technology like Python and Selenium to, let me look into my notes, find an example of what I can show you guys. Oh, I lost it. But yeah, essentially, basically using Selenium, Gmail, URLscan.io API to build a browser extension or a bot that can check if any new emails that you get have hyperlinks, sends the URLs to URLscan.io, parses the scan results, and flags whether the URL that, from the emails that you have or are getting are suspicious, and could display an alert like, warning, this email contains links to a suspicious domain. And here's a little example. .ru is actually a Russian type of like a domain. I guess we have .ca, which is Canada. .ru. Oftentimes if you're getting a link from .ru, it's likely, likely from Russian hackers, right? Because we know that Russian hackers are very, very skilled. And many of the very, very, very famous hackers in the world come from Russia. So they're very good at it. And oftentimes, if you don't want to be caught by them, look out for .ru. But anyways, here's a fun little project for you to make that can actually detect phishing emails. So you can use things like Selenium, Gmail, and URLscan.io. So that other site I showed you just a few minutes ago, there's actually an API for it. So you can send URLs to and then receive a JSON response of it back into your code base and create a dashboard or a report of it. So yeah, basically these would be the technologies that you would use. So, but yeah, so anyone who wants to go further, deeper into this project, here's some other good, advanced tasks that you can add to it. You can parse headers and validate SPF and DKIM results. So I'll actually give you guys a more in-depth explanation of what that is in a second. But you can also use whoislookup to see if the domain is less than 7 days old. So why this is important, because lots of times when attackers want to do a cyber attack, they'll often pay or buy a domain specifically for that attack. And often what that means is that that domain is fresh, it's new, it hasn't been bought on the internet, or it hasn't been registered for long enough to be considered like, a trusted resource. Google has been registered since 1997, I think. So, having that feature within this project would be really, really good on your resume. And also building a scoring system like a phishing risk meter, right? So obviously you can't make a perfect system that can detect a phishing email every single time, but what you can do is give a certainty score. So that's also a really good idea. And yeah, I think like an extension on your browser would be a very good idea for this, because it's handy. You can put it on, I even think you can put it in the, the store for, the Chrome extension store. So you can actually get people to use your project, right? But yeah, these are just ideas. So you can obviously improve these, add your own little flair to it, basically just to strengthen your resume. So that's one little example of a project you can use. And if you were to do this type of project or any other, the best tip that I can give you for cybersecurity based projects would be to have a nice README, right? So for the developers out there, you know what a readme.md is. But if you're less technical, if you were to start doing these types of projects, the readme.md is essentially the documentation, or like basically the front-facing documentation of your project. And by making it look very professional, by adding, cool photos, nice headers, overviews, redirects, a tutorial on how to use your project, that's very, very valuable in the cybersecurity field because one, if you're providing a new tool that is open source for someone to use, you obviously want it to be as easy as possible to use. You don't want them to, break their backs or, kind of scare them out of using your tool because it's too complicated to understand. And second would be documentation, right? Being good at documenting things and giving, bullet points, being able to highlight certain things in the way that you document things is very, very. Oh, whoever's has their mic open, please mute yourself. But yeah, documentation, I've mentioned this briefly yesterday, but documentation is very important in cybersecurity. And I would note this down because almost in every single position that you'll be in cybersecurity, you are required to make very detailed and in-depth reports or documentation of a certain vulnerability. This even applies if you're trying to be a pen tester. So that position that most of you guys were into yesterday, that even needs documentation because when you find a vulnerability, you need to document how you did it, how dangerous it can be, and etc. And even if you're a cybersecurity analyst, say, for example, you're trying to research, the threat level of a certain type of vulnerability that has affected your company, it's up to you to document, how dangerous it is, give it a CVSS score, and basically be able to provide information to higher ups on understanding this. If your company goes through a huge breach, it's basically up to you to brief different teams or higher ups on on what happened. So having very good communication skills is very, very good. So you can use that both in your projects and also having that on your resume as well, because having good communication skills is key. So now introducing you guys actually a mini project challenge, right? So one of them, okay, so we're actually giving you guys the opportunity to make a little project, right? And you guys will submit it. And if we like it and if it's good, you might actually get a highlight, right? So I'll talk a bit more about the criteria about that in one of the slides further on. But yeah, so here's one of the ideas that you can use for this little project challenge. Of course, we'll be providing you the resources for this later if you want to resort to the different types of options later on. But yeah, you'll basically have a week to do all this. But to start, basically, number one is a phishing link checker bot, right? So you can use Python and URLscan.io API to scan emails for URLs and if they're suspicious. So this is similar to that idea we gave you earlier. So here's a good opportunity for you to actually do that and possibly get shout out for your project. But also a bonus that you can add is add the scoring system, right? To see whether the domain is newly registered. So similar to the one we gave earlier. Another project idea that we can give you would be a email header analyzer, right? So you can grab the raw email headers from Gmail or Outlook and then parse the SPF, DKIM, or DMARC fields and highlight failed or missing authentication that could indicate spoofing, right? So for those who don't know what DMARC is, right? DMARC is essentially a critical aspect within email security, which is basically DMARC in of itself is a policy that tells email providers what to do if an email fails SPF or DKIM checks, which helps prevent email spoofing. And now you might be wondering, what is SPF and DKIM? So SPF and DKIM are both parts of DMARC. SPF basically verifies the sending IP to see whether it's allowed to send emails for that domain. And then DKIM uses digital signatures to ensure that the email content that you're receiving wasn't altered in any way and confirms the sender's identity. So that is a very high level overview of SPF, DKIM, and DMARC, but it is a very very important concept that you should know of if you're going to go into more of like a a cybersecurity field where you're more analyzing cybersecurity risks and stuff like that. Understanding how emails can be considered suspicious is very important. So if this is a project or a type of career that you would maybe be interested in, this would be a good project for you to maybe submit to us. Next would be maybe for the video game developers here, would be a phishing awareness game. So You can make like a little CLI or web app to try to guess real versus fake emails. You can basically copy the Google phishing quiz that we provided earlier. That would be, a good little exercise for you to, that you can show on your resume, and also quite a fun one at that. And even more, a bonus that you can get if you were to submit a project like this to us would be if you can actually explain how something is fake. So say someone gets an answer incorrectly, you have a screenshot of a phishing email and your question is this a real or a phishing email? And they get it wrong. Bonus points if you can explain why that's wrong, right? So yeah, this is a pretty fun one. And next one, this one might be useful for some of the AI likers here, or the AI developers, or people who are into AI. I know someone from yesterday mentioned about AI, so here's a fun project that you might be able to spec in. But essentially, it's a threat report summary. So you can make an app or a web app that can summarize a real-world attack, and you can use blogs like CrowdStrike, Mandiant, CISA, or even the CVE database entries to summarize a certain attack that has happened. So if a big attack has happened recently or throughout history, this app can try to figure out what vulnerability was exploited, the CVS score for that vulnerability, which is the bonus at the bottom. And yeah, you can do this essentially by either using Python with Flask, and also it's a good opportunity to use the OpenAI API or any type of other AI APIs, basically just like wrappers. So yeah, basically it's a good skill for understanding how to get some background or some context of some vulnerabilities, know whether, if you have a vulnerability on your system, using this project to see, what the vulnerability is, how to remediate it, how severe it is. So this is quite a useful thing to have on your resume, because any company would need a tool like this, or analysts that understand this concept. So yeah. So basically, for the criteria or more information about this project would be, obviously, we know that most of you are going to use ChatGPT for this. So why not use or come up with something creative as well? So of course, ChatGPT, it's unavailable. You can use ChatGPT, but as long as you understand what your code does and you understand, the logic behind it, essentially just using ChatGPT for syntax and very like little snippets of code, that'll be fine. But we please ask you not to solely use ChatGPT for this, because this is the opportunity for you to learn. It's an opportunity for you to have something on your resume that actually accurately displays your skill set, and that you were able to create an application or a project like this without using, or basically like just cheating your own way, the whole way through using ChatGPT. But you can use like AI based like wrappers or APIs to help you, because once again, that actually is a skill. But just using ChatGPT to give you all the syntax, don't do that. Be legit. But yeah, you can share your unique idea with us at the official email, as you can see right here. And if we like it, we can even give you a highlight. And you must submit this before the 29th of June with the subject Cybersec Workshop Project, right? So maybe you would want to take a picture of this, or maybe review the slides after this if you want to maybe get a highlight. Of course, having a project that's highlighted is really good for recruiters as well, to see that your project actually meant something to certain people. So this is a really good opportunity if you have no projects to stand out. Okay. So yeah, here's a bit more of resources that you might need. Google phishing quiz. So that's the one that if the moderators didn't put them in the chat already, you should search that up. I believe it is in the comments right now, and you should test whether your phishing skills have improved at all in this session. But I will say they're quite tricky. They're not going to be as obvious as the example I gave earlier. So it really makes you apply your cybersecurity knowledge and what you learned in this course, and basically just like common knowledge to see whether an email is phishing or not. Also, there's Cyber Patriot training. So Cyber Patriot training is essentially, I don't believe it's available as of right now, but it's essentially a national youth center education program created for Air Force Association or by the Air Force Association to inspire K-12 students towards careers in cybersecurity or STEM. So for those who are into, kind of more, it's by the military, the Air Force, technically, right? So for those who want to work more government, having a training program by them is a very good way to be exposed to some things like that. And then, of course, a good course that you can do besides the CS50 course that we mentioned last time is the Khan Academy Introduction to Internet Safety. So I'll actually show you guys what this looks like really quick. It's basically a course, right? And it'll basically just run you through some core concepts, and it's very, very easy to understand, and it's a very, very popular platform that people use to learn. So yeah, you can resort to that if you want to learn a bit more about the things we learned today. And of course, to take the quiz to be eligible for the certificate, you will have to scan the QR code here. If you don't have a phone, it'll be put in the chat. So please make sure you do the quiz. Same thing as yesterday, same time that it's due. So make sure you do this. And I hope you guys learned quite a few things. Yeah, so basically, I think we're good on time, but I think we'll skip this for now. We'll save it for another course, right? I hope for the council that's okay, because yeah, we're actually pretty good on time, and I want to save time for questions and answers. I don't want to go over the time, so I'll save that bonus content for another day or another session. So yeah, just for a quick preview of day 3 of what we're going to be teaching next, we're going to be covering a bit about password security. So obviously that's a big part of cybersecurity hygiene. Two-factor authentication, what is it, how it can protect your accounts, safe browsing and privacy settings, public Wi-Fi's and VPNs, tools and resources, and then a little career tie-in. And of course, I believe next session our key speakers will be coming today. So these people are, the big dogs of the industry. They've been working at big companies, and if you want to ask very, very, pressing questions for people who have been in this industry for a very, very long time, that would be your opportunity, because they also, not only are they experts, but they also work at very big companies, so they know their stuff. Yeah. And also some quick reminders. So yeah, basically what I mentioned earlier is just to complete the challenge by the end of the day after each session. You have until 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So convert that to any time that's within your time zone. And you need an average of 80% on 4 out of the 5 quizzes to be eligible for the certification. And you must attend 4 out of the 5 sessions to receive the certificate. So yeah, the next session is June 27th. Is that accurate? Yes, it is. So June 27th will be the next session, same time as today and yesterday. And the council moderators will send out the resource sheet at the end of the bootcamp after session 5. So yeah. So if you have any questions or feedbacks or of today, you can reach out to us through this QR code, or also directly to the council's email. Just let them know how what you think about this course, whether you've learned anything, whether things you think we can improve in future boot camps. So believe it or not, this won't be the only boot camp. This is only the first. So if you have any suggestions for things that you would want to see for another type of boot camp besides cybersecurity, that would be your chance. So yeah, thanks for joining today. I think that is all the slides. But yeah, thanks for joining today. That's the end of the content for today. Stick around if you want to have if you have any questions for today, and you want to ask any questions if you didn't have any chances to do so yesterday, or if you've had any pressing questions today. And also, I will not be sticking to pinned comments this time. You guys tricked me last time. I realized that you guys could pin yourselves. So I know you. I'm onto you guys. You guys tricked me yesterday. So I guess there's a few social engineers in here that have figured that out. So yeah, of course, follow the socials of the council if you want to support them and support future, future sessions. So yeah. So I'm gonna look at the comments now and answer some of the questions that you guys have. So All right. So we have a hand up. Fender Bender.
Hi,
What
I
is
had
your
a
question?
question about the project. Is this to be worked on individually or can we work in groups?
That's actually that's a very good question. I would actually ask the council about this on email if they don't answer, if one of the moderators don't answer in the chat right now. But um, I wouldn't. That would be a pretty good idea, but you would have to ask the council. But I would suggest that you maybe do it alone just for now, because if you don't really have that many technical skills, it'll basically just put all of the the technical aspects, all the coding up to you. So you'll learn more in that matter.
Okay.
But I I guess yeah, like working in teams wouldn't be terrible because of course in the industry you're going to be working in big teams, and like I said, communication is key. So being able to create a very impressive project with a contributor, that is very good. So yeah, you might have to reach out for the council for that. I'm not sure, but if they're listening to that right now, maybe they heard my suggestion. So yeah, I hope that helps.
Oh, so it says they said that you can work in groups.
Okay, yeah, perfect. So I totally agree with that. So I've actually worked on a few projects that I've gone to a few hackathons. So for those who don't know what hackathons are, they're basically like coding competitions, and often you do these within groups. And those hackathon projects look very, very good because it shows that you're able to build something very fast inside of a team. And working fast within a team is a skill in of itself because in the industry, especially cyber, especially when your company is being attacked, you're going to have to work very fast within a big team. So having that on your resume, stating that you worked within a team for your projects is very, very good. So yeah, that's a very good suggestion. I'm glad you mentioned it.
All right, if anyone wants to meet up for a group, I'm open to have a chat or something, or you can chat on the C Cube thing.
That's a good
I
idea.
just wanted to ask because I was just curious.
Yeah, that's a good question. Thanks for asking it. Okay, so I'm seeing questions now in the chat. Let me go a bit more back. I'm seeing a question here by Nikita. If your email was pwned, how can you mitigate the flood of spam? Mitigating the flood of spam. So, mitigating the flood of spam is quite tricky depending on what email inbox or provider that you use. There are ways to add filters to certain types of emails that you're receiving, but yeah, essentially if you have been pwned, it doesn't just necessarily mean whether you're going to get emails from them. It also means that your credentials could also potentially be online. So it's not also just a phishing issue, it's also just a sign-in attempt issue. And oftentimes what happens when your credentials are within a very big security leak or a data breach like the one that just happened recently, you'll get some sign-in attempts, and then you'll get a phishing email that'll say, hey, you just received a code for this, can you give the code to us? And that'll essentially allow them to bypass two-factor authentication. So that's, oftentimes if you've been pwned, you'll most likely have to worry more about your credentials being stolen, less of the emails that you get. Because no matter what, even if you sign up for companies, they sell off your data. Even Facebook does it, I'm pretty sure. So you'll be receiving spam emails regardless. So that would be the least of my worries. But yeah, sorry, I can't really answer that one too well because I don't know exactly how to do so myself. But yeah, essentially, if you have been pwned, I would just say change your passwords and potentially add filters to depending on what email provider you have. Add some filters from certain types of domains and having stricter security measures for your emails. So there are some, I believe there are certain types of, I'm trying to remember if it's the email inboxes themselves or extensions that you can use that can actually stop emails from having HTML. So oftentimes like emails have the same type of coding as websites. It uses HTML to have like those fancy banners. You often see that in like very popular, if you get an email, a legit email from Google, they use HTML within their email content. And I'm sure there's ways that you can filter the HTML out so you can just see the content. But yeah, you can also use the resources we use today to help yourself unpwn yourself. So yeah, thank you for your question. To receive the certification, do we need to complete the project? Oh yeah, that's a good question. So you do not need to do the project. The project is absolutely optional, but we do highly suggest that you do the project anyway, because already creating a project in cybersecurity is difficult enough. So giving you a bit of that, that motivation to get, maybe a highlight from it and a mention, and potentially, you're exposed to, a few hundred students that are in this boot camp right now. So it's also a really good opportunity to have a project that you can potentially reach some other people who are trying to start a project. So you don't have to do the project for the certification, but we would suggest that you do. I'm seeing some thank yous. Thank you to everyone who came, by the way. Thank you for the thank yous. I love doing this. So yeah, I hope to see everyone tomorrow. I'll still be answering some questions though. Let me look at the more recent ones because I see people already answering questions. What are some more questions? Some people just want to watch the world burn. That is very true. As as long as people exist, there will always be people who have bad intentions. So that's why cybersecurity will always be needed. Cybersecurity, especially as long as we rely on technology, which there's no signs of us dropping that anytime soon. There will always be a need for cybersecurity because there are people out there who just want to watch the world burn. So you're absolutely right. Let me turn my camera on. I don't want you guys to be just listening from a little Google Meet screen. Also, I heard a question yesterday about, I wasn't able to answer it. I believe, who was the one who asked it? I think it was Zubir. But
Yeah, it was me. Yeah, it was me.
You were the one who asked about the certifications, right?
That is correct.
Yeah. Okay. So the question about certifications is a very, very difficult one because certifications constantly get better than the other, and it's basically like a cat and mouse game of like what certification is the most valuable within your industry. But the first ones I can bring off the top of my mind would be the CompTIA security course. So CompTIA or CompTIA, they're actually a certification kind of like provider, and they have certifications for multiple types of domains. So they have one for just computer science, networking, and they have ones for cybersecurity. And I would really suggest going for that if you're on a budget, because believe it or not, certifications are quite expensive. And I believe the CompTIA one is only a few $100s. It depends on how many attempts you do for the exams or how many, aids that you request from certain types of instructors during your study time. But the CompTIA, geez, I can't pronounce that. CompTIA course is a very good beginner one in security. Very well known for recruiters. One really good one I know for penetration testing is the, I'm trying to look, what's the name of it again? It's a for, I know so many people who have this one, pen testing. It's basically, it's a certification made by Kali Linux, okay? And it's a more, okay, so it's OSCP. So I personally know lots of people who have the OSCP certification, and it's one of the best in the world for penetration testing, if you're interested in that. The reason it's so good, because not only does it contain the more like up-to-date concepts of penetration testing, but it's also from a very, very reliable source, the people who made Kali Linux. The only thing I would say about this would be that it's very, very expensive. And that brings me to my next kind of point I want to bring. If you're trying to go for certifications, don't go aiming for the very, like, if you do a little quick Google search of what certifications are, valuable, most of them are in like the thousands of dollars, including the OSCP. So that's just the letters OSCP. Let me quickly search up how much it costs, because it's a few $1,000s. Yeah, so it depends. It's $1,650, I believe, USD. And yeah, it's quite expensive. So what most professionals do, they actually enter the industry without having certifications. And the reason for that is because lots of organizations or companies that hire beginners or people who are new to a certain type of field will actually pay for your certifications. And probably, like, I have a lot of coffee chats with people like the professionals that I kind of look up to and people at RBC, and they say every single time, let your company pay for your certifications. And I cannot stress that enough, unless if it's a beginner course or a less expensive course like the CompTIA, or maybe some courses on Udemy. I have a few courses on Udemy, which is a very good online learning platform. Um, it is not, it's not free, it is paid, but almost like once a month, all of the courses go like 80% off. So like the courses are around $20, and they're very, very good to also have on your resume because they count as certificates, but it's from Udemy. So it's not exactly like the most, like, known source, I guess. Depends on who's, like, who's the instructor of the course on Udemy. But there's also the CISSP, or is it the CISSP? All of the certifications are weird acronyms, but yeah. So there's the CISSP, which stands for Certified Information System Security Professional. So this is more kind of just like global, cybersecurity knowledge for you to be considered a cybersecurity specialist. I know a lot of people in the team that I currently work in at RBC who have the certification, and it is a very, very, very good one to have. Once again, I think it's a bit more on the expensive side as well, but it's offered by IC or ISC2, which is a very, very reputable certification provider. I think they even make a few other ones as well. Let me just confirm that. I think they also have one. Yeah, they have the CC, which is cybersecurity. I forgot what it stands for. But yeah, if you want to look into some really, really good certifications, I'm going to put it in chat right now. Oh yeah, Nikita already put it in the chat. But yeah, so ISC2, they're a very good certification provider, and they have a lot of very, very popular and thought out for certifications. That's one thing that I would look into, but of course, only once you've applied for your role and you've got it. And most likely, whether you request for it or your manager or whoever hired you is going to request that you have this, because certain companies will require you to have a certain type of certification to be eligible. But if you don't have it, I believe it's not the end of the world. Most of the times they'll get you to, like, they'll pay for you and you'll get to do the certification as you're working. So yeah, but certifications also is a very, very important concept of cybersecurity as well. So much so that cybersecurity, if you want to excel in it, your education or your degree almost doesn't matter. I'm not going to say it completely doesn't matter, but in the industry, especially for cybersecurity, they very, very rarely care or look at your education. They just kind of look to see, okay, does this guy have a bachelor's degree? Oh, does he have his master's? Oh, he says he has one. Okay, cool. But what they really care about is certification. So kind of like certifications care a bit more, or matter a bit more than education. Not to say that you shouldn't do well in your education, because obviously if you're failing, there are ways that they can figure that out. If they ask for your GPA, there are some instances where they'll ask that. It's very uncommon for cybersecurity positions. But yeah, so I would search up, maybe in a future session, I can actually have a more revised list, because I have some notes from some coffee chats that I've had with some specialists who told me what certifications I should get. Also, I can ask them personally of, like, how hard the certification is if you're trying to go for them. So that's something I can maybe offer in one of the future sessions. Now going to another question. So Shiv, I see that you have your hand up. Would you like to answer, or would you like me to answer your question?
Yeah, really quick, you mentioned that they look at having a master's. How important is having a master's in cybersecurity?
Um, I wouldn't say it's like terribly important. I know people who are very, very good at what they do, and they're at huge companies without masters, and maybe not even like at a good school, like just for a bachelor's as well. Not to say that a master's is useless, but that's like kind of what I mean when cybersecurity. I don't know if I mentioned this in the last course, but cybersecurity is not only just a lot of learning it through education, it's also through your own experimentation and your own research. So, and smart recruiters, they know that. So, having masters, you might do some research for that, for that diploma or for that rank, but, you know, from who I've seen in computer science or just in tech in general, having a master's is not exactly like that. It's not as important, not important, like not as requested as other types of like fields. Like for example, psychology, you almost can't get hired without a master's or a PhD almost, I believe. So cybersecurity is one on the side where master's isn't really needed.
Mm.
Even in Quebec, we don't even need to have a bachelor's. Us in CEGEP, we just get a diploma, where inside of Quebec or Montreal, that's recognized as like, good enough to be like a professional in computer science. So you can work full time just with a CEGEP like diploma, right? Full time as a cybersecurity specialist. So that's kind of like an example I can give you how, how little companies really value masters. So once again, it's just like personal research, side projects, certifications. That's what I think they care the most of. And then I guess people with masters in cybersecurity are the people who turn out to be cybersecurity researchers. So if you remember from the first session, basically the majority of cybersecurity researchers, it's completely like it's freelance, it's independent, and they'll often use their experience of getting a master's to do like more in-depth research on a certain topic. So, or even a PhD. So, but yeah, I hope that answers your questions.
Yep, thank you so much.
Since
No
we're on
problem.
topic on masters, does it really depend on the type of masters that you get? Because like I know some people have their computer engineering degree or some sort of CS degree and do their bachelor's, but then their masters they do an MBA or something alternative, which is a little bit different.
That I don't know that much on, because once again, I'm technically not in university yet. I'm a CEGEP student, and most of the stuff I'm teaching you guys is like all from what I've personally learned, all from like the work experiences that I've worked, and I've personally been told from professionals that what are important things I've mastered. So more of like the things in terms of education, I personally feel like it's never really mattered. I even know some friends, the best hackers that I've ever met, they never went to university. For example, yesterday when we talked about government work in cybersecurity, the friend that I know in digital forensics, he didn't go to university either. Just from CEGEP, he got hired at the RCMP and worked full time, and he's even a manager now, I believe. So it just goes to show, like, you don't even like that's how little it's required inside of cybersecurity. Because, like, think of like if if you get to become more experienced in cybersecurity, you'll learn a bit more of stories about like some origin stories. But like most of like very legendary hackers were hackers when they were like 13 years old. Like people become insane hackers at very young ages, and it just goes to show that like kind of like your degree or your education level doesn't really matter. It all just kind of matters like how long have you been doing this? Like if that kind of makes sense. So, and for the type of masters that you have, I think it even matters a bit like less. Like, for example, I'm too old already. No, you're not. I know people who have like started in cybersecurity when they were like 40 years old and they're like managers now. So I would not worry about that. But yeah, like me, for example, I started hacking when I was 10 years old. So that's like a fun little joke, but it was like little innocent stuff, not like, the people hacking Amazon with like Amazon Fire Sticks, like, stuff like that. But back to the master's thing. I know most schools don't actually offer cybersecurity programs. So I know most schools in Toronto or Ontario, they do offer this. Like I think Seneca does, but at least for McGill or Concordia in Montreal, they don't offer cybersecurity courses. They actually just offer computer science courses, and then the masters that you can get would often be in information security or like more security focused. But I still don't think that any type of like very, very high level of education matters. It's more of like just your personal experience in research and your certifications. So yeah, I hope that answers your question. I sadly can't answer that because I'm not a master's student and I haven't really been able to weigh how useful it is. But like so far, I haven't even graduated from Stage Up yet, and I've been like I feel like I've been successful enough just from like side projects and just being passionate about cybersecurity that I feel like having a master's doesn't really matter. It's all about in this course I'm teaching you guys the fundamentals, and maybe you guys can look into it a bit further, certain types of cybersecurity fields on your own time and find that passion for yourself. And I feel like that passion, along with certifications, is key. Anyways, I answered very long for this question. Nate, your hand is up. Would you like to answer your question? Or would you like to ask your question? Sorry. Nate? Hello? Oh, Mike. Oh, it's okay. In the meantime, I'll try to find my next question. Me jailbreaking my PS3 and downloading Linux thinking I'm a hacker. I mean, honestly, that's a pretty fun project to do. Like a fun little, not even just like your PS3. If anyone who knows about PSPs, like PlayStation Portables, if you jailbreak those, it's also kind of like a fun little project. If you don't do it, it's illegal. Don't do it. But if you've done it, you know what I'm talking about. But actually, is it illegal? I think it's. Actually, don't know. Anyways, yeah, Nate.
Yeah, anyway, I was gonna ask what your favorite Hack the box is.
Oh, for Hack the Box, I don't use Hack the Box. I use Try Hack Me because Hack the Box, I've thought about using it, but they're a bit more like, they try to persuade you more into spending money for like, to have more boxes. So for that reason, I haven't used it. So I've been using more Try Hack Me. So
Okay.
yeah, I can't really help you with that. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm not too familiar with Try Hack Me, but if do they have like a box type of thing there?
Yeah, it's like I guess it's really like similar in terms where it's like a lab environment where they kind of give you like a little like I don't know if I mentioned this yesterday, but when I gave like a little demo of what Try Hack Me looked like, I gave like a little example of what a Hydra like brute forcing little like lab looks like. And there's a button where you can start a VM within your browser that'll create like a little like hacking environment with the tool like Hydra pre-installed. And it'll actually like give you like a little environment where you can try the brute forcing. So it does create like some type of like real live testing environment. If that's like so.
Yeah, kind of like Hack the Box does. Yeah. Okay, so I'm similar.
Yeah, sorry.
So what I was gonna ask is, what's your favorite kind of box, I guess, in Try Hack Me? Some you would recommend checking out?
Personally, I would say I think it's considered an easy one, but I would say one of the courses you should take on Try Hack Me is absolutely how to use Metasploit. I think no, I showed off Hydra yesterday. Yeah, but Metasploit, it's basically like just a framework that it's basically just like it's a whole database of vulnerabilities that you can just run just like that. All you need is just to say, hey, I want to use this exploit, right? You just input the IP and it'll just run the exploit. And what's even cooler is that it can even verify to see whether the computer is vulnerable in the first place. So it'll use some like analyzing tools to see what type of system it is, what type of ports are open and stuff like that. And then it can tell you whether that device is
Okay.
actually vulnerable. And then you can use just like a quick, it's basically doing most of the heavy work for you. You just choose an exploit, you just
Yep.
input the IP, blah, 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 and then you just press run and it'll run the attack. So it's essentially exposing you to a super powerful, like plethora, like, like a plethora of vulnerabilities in a super powerful database. And you can just run all the exploits just like that. Like the Eternal
Wow.
Blue threat that I mentioned in the WannaCry, it happened because of the Eternal Blue vulnerability. You can easily run that using Metasploit. I think that's what they teach in the Metasploit course. Actually, let me I'll find it for you right now, and I'll actually put it in the chat
Yeah, for sure.
because it's an amazing tool to know. And if you know that tool, you can basically use it in a bunch of CTFs. And that's another thing that TryHackMe does. Not only is it just tutorials, but also it gives you challenges as well, and pretty fun challenges. They even have like movie or like TV show based
Yeah.
boxes. Like they have like a My Hero Academia one, they have a Mr. Robot one, I think they even have like a Matrix one. So it's super fun. Like it makes hacking super gamified and kind of puts you in like the
Yeah.
world of hacking, right?
I mean, that's what I really love about Hack the Box. It does really feel like a game you're going through and not like a task.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I did find the link. I'll put it in the chat if the moderators didn't already do it. I hope.
Not to interrupt you, it is 8 o'clock, so we're gonna kind of wrap it up. Yeah, so maybe like just paste it in the you paste it in the chat. So whoever asked the question, I think it was Nate, you can just check it out. If you guys have any more questions, I'm so sorry. We're gonna wrap it up now, but you guys can like note down your questions, save them for our next session, which is gonna be next Friday, I'm pretty sure. Next Friday. So so I see that there's still 50 people left. So if you guys have questions or anything, save them for next time. We're going to be having our industry speakers come next. So if you guys have any more burning questions, you guys can save it for that as well. And Lucas will be there as well next week. So don't worry. So see you guys next week. Okay, I see everyone's like leaving. Yeah. Okay.
See you guys.
Bye guys. Good
Thanks
night.
for coming.
Thank you. Thank you all. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good night. Bye.
Good night if it's night for you. Okay. 25, 24. Okay.
I'm just going to answer one thing because it's such a unique question. Last thing by Kate. Jailbreaking is essentially taking like say for example you have an iPhone. Okay, you know how iPhones have the iOS operating system on it, right? Jailbreaking is essentially taking the intended